There comes a moment in every life when the soul whispers, enough. Enough of rushing when you are tired. Enough of giving when your own cup is empty. Enough of being everywhere except where your spirit needs you most. We live in a world that praises constant availability, yet forgets the quiet courage of saying no. But my friend, you were not placed on this earth to be a servant to everyone's urgency. You are here to honor your purpose, to protect your peace, and to rise into the fullness of who you are, not by being endlessly reachable, but by being wisely reserved. Today, let us talk about the strength it takes to step back, the dignity of boundaries, and the beautiful power that blooms when you stop being available to everything that does not evolve you. Your time is sacred. Treat it as such. Too often we forget that time is the one treasure we cannot borrow back, cannot replace, cannot negotiate for once it slips from our hands. Yet we give it away so easily, as if it were an endless stream instead of a precious drop. We rush toward every call, every message, every demand, believing that being constantly available makes us worthy, lovable, dependable. But the truth is, when you say yes to everything, you quietly say no to yourself. You cannot water every garden and expect your own to bloom. Your spirit needs tending to, your dreams need space to grow, and your heart needs moments of stillness to breathe. There is a quiet dignity in choosing yourself without apology. It does not make you selfish, it makes you whole. The world will always have one more request, one more expectation, one more emergency dressed in urgency. But you must learn to pause and ask, at what cost to me? Because every time you bend for things that do not nourish you, you rob your own soil of strength. And when your soil dries, your purpose weakens. You deserve to thrive, not survive on scraps of energy you've scattered everywhere except within. People who truly value you will never be offended by your boundaries. They will understand that your time is a reflection of your priorities, your peace, and your self-respect. When you stop being available to everyone, something remarkable happens. You begin to hear yourself again. You begin to notice what your heart has been whispering beneath the noise. You begin to feel the weight of your own dreams calling you forward. It is in the quiet moments, the ones you once gave away so freely, that your real life starts to unfold. Understand this: your presence is powerful, your energy is powerful, your attention is powerful. Do not scatter these gifts across places and people who do not honor them. When you make yourself available to everything, you become exhausted by nothing. But when you become selective, lovingly, courageously selective, you rise into a new version of yourself. You become someone whose time carries meaning, whose silence carries strength, and whose boundaries carry wisdom. There will always be those who expect your constant presence because they have grown comfortable feeding on your availability. They will question your distance, misunderstand your pause, or call your change unfamiliar. Let them. Growth often looks like disappointment to those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. You owe no explanation for choosing yourself. Your life, your peace, and your purpose are greater than anyone's temporary discomfort. So honor your time as you would honor something fragile, rare, and beautiful. Hold it with care. Protect it from unnecessary noise. Offer it only where your soul feels seen, nourished, and respected. You were meant to bloom, not burn. And blooming requires space, silence, and the courage to say, I matter too. Availability is not love. Boundaries are. So many of us were taught that the more we give, the more we bend, the more we show up at the snap of a finger, the more lovable we become. We confuse exhaustion with devotion and sacrifice with connection. But love has never required you to abandon yourself. Love does not demand that you erase your needs to honor someone else's comfort. Real love breathes in honesty, in clarity, in the gentle strength of saying, this is where I end and where you begin. When you set boundaries, you are not closing the door on people. You are opening the door to healthier relationships, to truer respect, and to a version of yourself that no longer feels drained from overgiving. People who expect your constant availability are often people who benefit from your absence of boundaries. They grow accustomed to you answering immediately, sacrificing instantly, and rearranging your entire life to fit their momentary wants. But that is not love. That is dependence dressed as affection. And when you continue to show up without limits, you teach others that your time is inexpensive, your presence is replaceable, and your peace is negotiable. Boundaries are the language of self-worth. When you draw a line with grace and strength, you are saying, I honor myself enough to protect what keeps me whole. There comes a moment when you realize that being always available is not a sign of compassion, it is a sign of depletion. You cannot love anyone well when you are running on the remains of your own energy. You cannot support others if your own spirit is collapsing under the weight of constant demands. Boundaries allow you to rest, to breathe, to return to your relationships with a full heart instead of an empty shell. They help you show up with intention rather than obligation. They allow your yes to be sincere rather than resentful. Those who truly care for you will recognize that your boundaries are not walls built out of fear, but fences built out of love. Love for yourself, love for your peace, love for the relationship. They will honor your space because they understand that healthy connection requires two whole people, not one person overextending while the other simply receives. The right people will never punish you for choosing balance. They will appreciate the strength it takes to care for yourself, and they will meet you with their own boundaries, creating a relationship grounded in mutual respect. And if someone is offended by your boundaries, let that offense reveal what their connection was built upon. If your no shakes the relationship, it was never built on love. It was built on access. If your pause feels like abandonment to them, they were never seeing you. They were merely using you. And though the realization may hurt, it grants you freedom. Freedom from pretending, from pleasing, from stretching yourself thin to maintain a relationship that was never meant to nourish you. One of the most powerful forms of love is the love you give yourself when you protect your heart from being overwhelmed. Boundaries are not a barrier to connection, they are the foundation of it. When you honor your own limits, you invite others to love you in a healthier, more genuine way. You become someone who is not exhausted by love, but strengthened by it. And in that strength, you discover something beautiful. The people meant for you will never need you to be constantly available. They will simply need you to be whole. You are not required to shrink so others may feel comfortable. Too many of us have been taught to fold ourselves into smaller shapes, to dim our brightness, to silence our own truths so that no one around us feels threatened or unsettled. We learn to apologize for our strength, to downplay our gifts, to soften our fire so others will stay near. But there is no honor in burying the essence of who you are. You were not placed on this earth to tiptoe around the insecurities of others, nor to make yourself small enough to fit into spaces that were never designed for your growth. You are meant to expand, to rise, to stretch into the fullness of your potential without guilt or hesitation. When you constantly say yes to keep the peace, you betray the parts of yourself that are longing to exhale. Every forced yes chips away at your authenticity. Every reluctant agreement builds a quiet resentment in your chest. And every time you silence your own needs to comfort someone else's expectations, you dim the light that was meant to guide you forward. Your yes is not a duty that you owe the world. It is a gift given by choice, shaped by intention, and rooted in self-respect. When you give it freely from a place of truth, it carries power. But when you give it out of fear, guilt, or pressure, it becomes a burden you must carry alone. Some people will grow uneasy when you begin to stand tall again. They have grown accustomed to the version of you who bends without question, who sacrifices her time, who surrenders her needs to maintain harmony. But harmony that requires your silence is not harmony at all. It is control disguised as peace. And you must remember this. Anyone who asks you to shrink for their comfort is asking you to abandon yourself for their benefit. You do not owe that to anyone, not to friends, not to family, not to love, not to the world. There is a beauty in embracing your full height, your full voice, your full truth. When you allow yourself to be seen as you are, without apology, you open the door to relationships that celebrate your authenticity instead of fearing it. You give yourself permission to say no without trembling. You allow your dreams to take up space. You allow your talents to shine without waiting for approval. And most importantly, you begin to honor the person you have always been, the one who was never meant to live small. You do not become less worthy when you refuse to shrink. You become more whole. You do not become difficult when you protect your boundaries. You become honest. You do not lose people who matter when you grow. You simply lose those who were never prepared to meet you at your full height. And though their departure may sting, it clears the space for those who will walk beside you without asking you to dim your light. So stand tall, speak clearly, give your yes from a place of abundance, not fear. You are not here to make everyone comfortable. You are here to live fully, boldly, freely. Let the world adjust to your size, not the other way around. Silence is a sanctuary. Protect it. In a world that worships noise, that demands constant replies, instant reactions, and endless engagement, silence has become a rare and precious refuge. We have been taught to fear quiet moments, to think something is wrong when the world around us grows still. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is nourishment. It is the soft space where your soul finally has room to breathe, to settle, to speak. In silence, you begin to hear the truth beneath all the demands placed upon you. You begin to recognize the voice that has been drowned out by the rush of doing, giving, pleasing, and performing. Every time you choose silence over unnecessary chaos, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You reclaim your clarity, your balance, your sense of direction. Noise distracts, silence awakens. Noise pulls you in 100 directions. Silence reminds you of the path meant for your feet alone. Noise demands your instant availability. Silence asks for your gentle presence. The world will try to convince you that being always reachable is the same as being responsible. But real responsibility begins with tending to your inner landscape, and you cannot tend to anything you never pause long enough to observe. There is a quiet strength in stepping away from the chatter, the constant scrolling, the endless streams of opinions that try to shape your identity. When you unplug, even for a moment, you return to yourself. You hear your own heartbeat without the echo of expectations. You rediscover the dreams you set aside because the world was too loud for you to remember them. Silence is where your intuition rises, where your wisdom settles, where your peace roots itself more deeply than before. You do not grow by being constantly available to noise. You grow by being available to yourself. Some people may misunderstand your silence. They may call it distance, coldness, or disinterest. But silence is not a withdrawal from love. It is a return to balance. It is a space where you gather the strength to love more intentionally, more truthfully, and more fully. Silence allows you to listen without reacting, to observe without absorbing, to feel without being overwhelmed. It gives you the courage to respond with intention instead of impulse. It shapes you into someone whose words carry weight because they are not spoken out of exhaustion, but out of clarity. In silence, you remember that your worth is not measured by how quickly you respond or how often you are available. Your worth is inherent, steady, unchanging, and when you protect your silence, you protect your peace. You protect the parts of you that grow only in quiet spaces, your creativity, your faith, your healing, your strength. These things do not bloom in chaos, they bloom in calm. So guard your silence the way you would guard something sacred. Do not give it away to noise that drains you or distractions that scatter your spirit. Let your silence be a boundary, a blessing, a home you return to whenever the world grows too heavy. In that sanctuary, you will find yourself again, stronger, clearer, and ready to rise. When you stop being always available, you start being deeply respected. There is something powerful about a person who chooses their presence intentionally, who does not rush toward every call nor bend to every urge of the world. When you begin to step back from the habit of constant availability, people start to notice the value of your time, your energy, and your spirit. What was once taken for granted becomes something others must earn, honor, and cherish. You teach people, without saying a word, that your presence is not a convenience, it is a privilege. Human nature often fails to appreciate what is always there. When you are constantly accessible, your presence becomes ordinary, expected, assumed. It becomes background noise in someone else's life. But when you take a breath and create space, something shifts. People begin to lean in. They begin to listen more deeply when you speak. They begin to notice the grace in your walk, the wisdom in your silence, the strength in your boundaries. They begin to understand that your time is not something to be casually handled, but something to be treated with care. Stepping back does not mean rejecting the world. It means honoring yourself. It means recognizing that your life is not meant to be lived on call. It means understanding that you have the right and the responsibility to decide when and how you show up. And when you do show up from a place of intention rather than obligation, your presence carries a weight that cannot be ignored. People feel the difference. They feel the fullness of you instead of the fragments. Respect grows in the spaces where you stop overextending. It grows when you respond slowly instead of instantly, when you choose calm over chaos, when you protect your energy instead of spending it freely. Respect grows when people realize you are not desperate for their approval or validation. You are grounded, you are centered, you are whole. And whole people do not sprint toward every demand. They move with purpose. Some may resist your new boundaries at first. Those who were accustomed to your constant availability may feel confused, even offended when you begin to choose yourself. But their discomfort is not your burden. It is a reflection of how they benefited from your lack of limits. Let time reveal the truth. Those who genuinely value you will adjust. They will honor your pace. They will respect the new territory you are carving out for your peace. Those who cannot accept your growth were never meant to walk with you at your higher level. When you stop being available all the time, your relationships shift. They become more intentional. Conversations deepen. Interactions carry meaning. People begin to approach you with thought, care, and sincerity because they know your energy is not something to be wasted. Your absence teaches them what your presence truly means. And perhaps the most important revelation of all is this: the respect you receive from others begins with the respect you give yourself. When you hold your time sacred, the world learns to do the same. When you stop scrambling to be everywhere, you finally arrive where you truly belong, in a life built on dignity, purpose, and the quiet reverence of self-respect. Not everyone deserves front row access to your life. There is a sacredness to who you are, a quiet richness inside your spirit that was never meant to be shared with every passerby. Yet so many of us live with our emotional doors wide open, letting anyone step in, settle down, and shape our peace. We allow people with careless hands to hold our hearts. We allow those with loud insecurities to walk into our soft places. And we do it because we want to be kind, or because we fear being misunderstood, or because we have forgotten our own worth. But you must remember, access to you is not a right. It is a privilege. Not everyone has earned the intimacy of your thoughts, the tenderness of your trust, or the depth of your presence. There comes a time when you must look at the roles people play in your life and ask yourself who truly nurtures you and who merely occupies space. Some people enter your life like blessings, watering you with encouragement, honesty, and love. Others arrive like storms, unpredictable, draining, and demanding more than they ever give. And you must find the courage to distinguish between the two. Because when you hand out front row seats to those who only came for entertainment, you end up performing instead of living. You find yourself exhausted from trying to prove your worth to people who never deserved your vulnerability in the first place. Your inner world is not a public theater. It is a sanctuary meant for those who walk gently, who speak truthfully, who understand the weight of your dreams and the softness of your heart. It is for the ones who pour into you as much as you pour into them. When you surround yourself with people who uplift you, your spirit grows in ways you never imagined. Your peace expands, your confidence strengthens, your purpose becomes clearer. But when you give too much access to those who drain you, you lose yourself in the process of trying to hold together what was never meant for you. It is not cruel to pull back from people who only take. It is not harsh to guard your peace from those who disturb it. It is not unkind to reserve the deepest parts of yourself for the ones who have shown they can be trusted with your truth. Boundaries are not punishments, they are filters. They separate the sincere from the self-serving, the genuine from the curious, the loyal from the temporary. You do not need a crowd in your life, you need alignment. You need people who reflect the best of you, not the ones who magnify your doubts. Some individuals will be upset when you deny them access they once freely had. They will call you distant, cold, or changed. But understand this, their discomfort is not your concern. Growth requires a shedding of old patterns and old connections. When you rise into a healthier version of yourself, not everyone can reach that height with you. Some relationships fade not because you became selfish, but because you finally chose yourself. You are allowed to choose who sits close to your heart. You are allowed to protect your inner world from chaos and inconsistency. You are allowed to give your best energy to those who have proven themselves worthy of it. When you stop offering front row seats to everyone, your life becomes calmer, your spirit becomes stronger, and your path becomes clearer. And in that clarity, you will find a comfort that reminds you your peace is worth protecting, and not everyone deserves a place at your table. Disconnect to reconnect. There is a gentle wisdom in stepping away from the noise of the world so you can return to the truth of who you are. We live in a time where every second is filled with notifications, opinions, expectations, and demands that pull us in every direction except inward. We are so connected to everything outside of us that we become strangers to what lives within us. But the soul cannot speak in chaos. It whispers, it nudges, it guides in quiet moments when the world pauses long enough for you to hear its voice. When you disconnect from the constant pull of others, you create the space to reconnect with your own heartbeat, your own dreams, your own purpose. There is nothing weak or selfish about stepping back. It takes courage to pause. It takes strength to say, I need a moment in a society that glorifies busyness and burns out its own people. But you were not created to run endlessly on empty. You are allowed to rest from the noise that overwhelms you. You are allowed to unplug from conversations that drain you. You are allowed to step back from people who expect you to sacrifice your peace for their convenience. When you disconnect, even briefly, the world does not fall apart, but your spirit begins to rise. Most of us stay overly connected because we fear missing out, falling behind, or disappointing someone. We cling tightly to relationships, routines, and responsibilities that exhaust us simply because we think stepping back means failure. But the truth is, the moment you disconnect from what consumes you is the moment you reconnect to what completes you. Stillness allows you to gather up the broken pieces of yourself that you scattered pleasing others. Quiet moments help you remember what you once loved before the world told you what you should be. When you stop trying to meet every expectation, you begin to feel your own desires again. Some people will misunderstand your need for space. They will call your silence confusing or interpret your distance as disinterest. But your healing is not meant to fit their narrative. They are not meant to understand the depths of your exhaustion or the tenderness of your transformation. You do not owe the world your constant connection. What you owe yourself is presence, real, grounded, mindful presence, the kind that helps you breathe deeper, think clearer, and live more intentionally. Disconnecting does not mean closing yourself off forever. It means stepping back long enough to return stronger, wiser, and more whole. It means retreating into the quiet so you can walk back into the world with clarity. It means letting go of the pressures that suffocate you so you can reconnect with the purpose growing inside you. And when you do return, you show up not as a scattered version of yourself, but as someone who knows where they stand and where they are headed. When you disconnect from distractions, you reconnect with your direction. When you disconnect from chaos, you reconnect with peace. When you disconnect from others' expectations, you reconnect with your own truth. And in that reconnection, you find yourself again, not weakened, but renewed, not lost, but aligned, not overwhelmed, but finally in tune with the life you were meant to live. Over-availability leads to undervaluation. It is a quiet truth many of us learn only after giving too much, too often, to too many. When you make yourself endlessly available, people stop seeing your presence as a privilege and start treating it as a guarantee. They assume you will always answer, always show up, always adjust your life to fit their needs. And without meaning to, you teach them that your time is cheap, your energy is replaceable, and your boundaries are optional. But the heart can only give without measure for so long before it begins to feel the sting of being overlooked, unappreciated, and taken for granted. Human nature values what is rare, what is intentional, what requires effort. When your yes is automatic, when your presence is constant, it loses its impact, not because you are any less valuable, but because you have not required others to treat your value with care. When you spread yourself thin, you disappear in the very places you are trying to be seen. And when you run toward every call, you become the background support in someone else's story instead of the main character in your own. People do not treasure what they believe they can access at any time. They treasure what requires respect, thoughtfulness, and sincerity. Being less available does not make you distant, it makes you deliberate. It teaches others that your time has weight, your presence has meaning, and your energy is not an endless resource to be drained. When you begin to say no, or not now, or I need space, you are not closing the door on connection. You are restoring balance to your life. You are reminding yourself and everyone around you that you are a person with needs, dreams, limits, and a soul that requires care. Some people will notice the shift immediately. They will realize how much they leaned on your constant yes. They may feel unsettled, even frustrated, when you stop responding the moment they call. But their discomfort is simply an echo of the imbalance that was already there. It is not your responsibility to maintain relationships built on your exhaustion. When you step back, those who truly value you will step forward with maturity. They will adapt. They will respect your boundaries. They will meet you halfway instead of expecting you to carry the entire weight of connection. And then something powerful happens. Your worth becomes visible again, to you and to them. They begin to appreciate your words because they are no longer drowned in constant availability. They begin to cherish your presence because it is offered with intention, not obligation. Your time becomes meaningful, not mundane. Your energy becomes respected, not consumed. Overavailability is an invitation for others to assume you will always be there. But when you step back, even just a little, you teach the world how to treat you. You teach them that your life is valuable, that your peace matters, and that your presence is something to be honored, not exploited. And in that shift, you discover a deeper truth. You were never undervalued because you lacked worth. You were undervalued because you gave your worth away too easily. When you choose to be less available, you reclaim your dignity. You reclaim your strength. You reclaim your place in your own life, and the world begins to treat you with the respect you always deserved. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. Every action you allow, every boundary you set, every silence you break or endure becomes a lesson to the people around you. Long before you ever speak a word, your behavior tells the world exactly what you believe you deserve. If you give yourself away too easily, people learn to take you for granted. If you apologize for needs that every human being has, people learn to overlook them. If you shrink to make others comfortable, they learn to expect your smallness. But when you hold yourself with dignity, when you honor your own limits, when you treat your time, energy, and heart with respect, Others learn to rise to meet the standard you have set. Many of us move through life believing that kindness means tolerating anything. We think love means staying silent when we feel hurt, showing up even when we are exhausted, giving even when we are empty. But teaching people how to treat you does not come from self-sacrifice. It comes from self-regard. When you speak softly to yourself, the world listens. When you care for your needs without guilt, the world adjusts. When you refuse to let your boundaries be broken, the world learns they cannot be crossed. Your treatment of yourself becomes the instruction manual for how others must engage with you. And it is not arrogance to expect respect, it is alignment. It is recognizing that your life is too precious to be spent explaining your worth to people who benefit from your confusion. When you consistently honor your value, it sends a message that you are not available for chaos, disrespect, or inconsistency. You are not available for conversations that drain you or relationships that diminish you. You are available only for peace, sincerity, and mutual care. People take cues from your confidence, your firmness, your clarity. The boundaries you place around your life begin to shape the quality of the people within it. Some relationships will shift as you begin to treat yourself better. Those who relied on your softness to excuse their carelessness may resist your growth. They may call you changed, distant, difficult. But your transformation is not their burden to understand. Those who truly care for you will adapt because they recognize that your self-respect strengthens the relationship rather than weakens it. They will meet you with honesty, with accountability, with the same care you offer yourself. You do not lose people when you treat yourself well. You lose people who were never willing to treat you well in the first place. When you wake up each day and choose yourself, not in selfishness, but in self-preservation, something powerful begins to happen. You attract people who value consistency, who honor boundaries, who speak truth. You draw toward you experiences that align with your dignity. And you begin to realize that every moment you spend honoring yourself teaches the world that you are not to be mishandled. Treat yourself with the love you've been giving away. Speak to yourself with the tenderness you extend to others. Protect yourself with the firmness you wish someone had used to protect you. Because the world is always watching, always learning, always adjusting its behavior based on the standard you set with your own. Teach it well, teach it with courage, teach it with grace, and let your self-respect be the loudest lesson of all. Your life is your message. Protect the ink you write with. Every choice you make, every boundary you honor, every moment you give your time or withdraw it, becomes a line in the story only you can write. Yet too often, we allow others to hold the pen. We let their expectations dictate our direction. Their desires override our instincts. Their needs overshadow our own. And before we know it, the pages of our life are filled with commitments we never wanted, responsibilities we never chose, and silence where our dreams should have been spoken. But your life is not meant to be a canvas painted by other hands. The ink you carry, your peace, your purpose, your voice, is sacred, and you must protect it. There will always be people who want to shape your story for their convenience. They will pull you into their chaos, urge you to solve their problems, expect you to bend your schedule around their demands, not because they are cruel, but because it was easy. You were available, you were willing, you were always there, but every time you write a sentence that belongs to someone else's script, your own truth fades a little more. The boldness of your dreams becomes faint, the clarity of your purpose grows blurry, and the narrative of your life drifts from your hands. You cannot let the world write over the chapters meant for your growth. There is a quiet power in reclaiming your ink, in saying, "This is my story, and I choose how it unfolds." It does not make you unkind to step back from demands that drain you. It does not make you unloving to protect your energy from people who misuse it. It makes you a guardian of your own becoming. When you begin to write your life with intention, choosing where you invest your time, choosing who receives your presence, choosing which relationships deserve your tenderness, you create a story that honors the truth of who you are. Some people will not like the new chapters you write. They may protest when you stop being the person who saves them, fixes them, entertains them, or sacrifices for them. They may accuse you of being selfish or distant, but their discomfort is not a reflection of your wrongdoing. It is a reflection of their reliance on your compliance. You are not responsible for easing the fear others feel when you start living for yourself. You are only responsible for writing a life you can look back on without regret. And as you protect your ink, you will begin to see how powerful your choices truly are. You will notice how your peace deepens when you stop pouring yourself into situations that do not deserve your strength. You will see how your dreams awaken when you reclaim the time you once gave away without thought. You will feel how your soul settles when you no longer allow others to scribble over the margins of your life. Your narrative becomes clearer, sharper, more aligned with the person you are becoming. Your life is not a rough draft. It is the only manuscript you get. Write it in bold letters. Write it with a steady hand. Write it with a voice that no longer trembles from trying to please everyone around you. And above all, protect the ink, your heart, your peace, your purpose, because without it, the story you were born to tell will never reach its fullness. Let your life speak loudly, truthfully, and beautifully, exactly as you were meant to write it.